Hello and welcome to Power to the People with me, Graeme Pryce. Guess who's in the news again? Well, obviously you know because you've clicked on this video, so it's not exactly going to come as a surprise. But it's Graeme Linhan, the UK's most obsessed and deplorable anti-trans twat. I've mentioned Linhan, or Linhan as he likes to call himself on Twitter before. He's a strange and sad little example of a man. It's not just the fact that I don't agree with his opinions on trans people that makes me think he's an obnoxiously insufferable idiot, though. The world would be a very boring place if we all had the same opinions, after all. No, it's the woeful way he expresses them and the plaintive patheticness of the image he seems to want to project that offends me. He really is as low as the shit on a farmer's welly, and his opinions stink just as much. Regardless of what your opinion on trans people is, have a listen to how pathetically he's behaved this time and ask yourself if this is the man you'd like to be representing your views. Right after this. I was just looking at my channel analytics and I was shocked to discover that almost 40% of people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. I was inconsolable. You can go some way towards redressing the balance by just checking that you've subscribed, that you've rang the bell, and that you're hitting the like button before you go. It'll go just some way towards making this skinny old scouser a little bit more cheerful today. Thank you. Mr. Linhan was returning from Arizona when he was arrested. It really doesn't surprise me that he's visiting America at the moment. He probably sees the disgraceful descent into fascism that is happening in America right now as some sort of right-wing utopia where hatred for minorities is celebrated and trans people are to be derided at any cost. He's not far wrong. Let's not forget that the chief chode himself, Donald Trump, has barred trans people from serving in the military, began turfing out those who are already serving, pun absolutely intended, and is currently attempting to stop trans people who have served, in some cases for many years, from receiving their military pension. Gruesome Glinner probably feels right at home, though I'm sure he'd like Drumple Thinskin to go even further and execute them. If you think that sounds a bit extreme, you go ahead and have a look at what he's said in the past about how trans people should be treated. I'm not exaggerating. He was forced to return to the UK to appear on Thursday, today, in Westminster Magistrates Court on a separate case where he is accused of harassing another transgender woman and damaging her phone. I won't repeat what he said this time to get arrested, but it wasn't, as Claire Coutinho, the Conservative's scruffiest culture warrior, suggested, a joke. Not unless you consider threatening to punch somebody in the face after repeatedly misgendering them to be a joke. Anyway, who fucking knows these days? Some people probably do. Regardless, he was met from the aircraft in the airport by 5 police officers and he worked himself up into a petulant rage about it that an ambulance had to be called because they feared he was going to have a stroke or something. It did him no good, though. The hospital said he was okay and he was charged with inciting violence anyway. He's been barred from posting on Twitter by the courts, as they could clearly recognise that his profile and Twitter feed is a malfeasant and malicious litany of lies, disgusting transphobia of the worst kind imaginable, and deliberate disinformation. But he really wanted to play the victim, so he took to Substack to try and mislead his moronic followers with a twisted and tragic tale of how he was being victimised by trans activists. Now let's get one thing straight here. Graeme Linhan saying that he is being victimised by trans activists is like the Germans claiming in the 1930s that they were being harassed by anti-fascism activists. If he thinks somebody's standing up to him for misgendering them, spreading lies and disinformation about them to literally millions of people and eventually threatening them with actual violence is harassment, then I'm not really sure what to tell the man other than that he's a fucking idiot. It's shocking to think that he's a writer that gave us some of the most hilarious comedy of the last 2 decades. And while it might be tempting to boycott things he was involved in, bear in mind that multiple people were involved in the writing of things like Father Ted and the IT Crowd. They brought us some hilarious characters over the years. Richard Ayoade springs to mind for me. I love how he plays Moss in the IT Crowd. I never got into Father Ted, but I know a lot of people who did, and it brought us some fantastic memes that we still use even nowadays, didn't it? It will probably come as no surprise to you to hear that work has pretty much dried up for Linhan these days, though. He's gone from being a comedy hero to a pedantic twat with his constant, never-ending 24/7 obsession with hating trans people. Seriously, the guy never does anything else these days, and everything he's done in the last few years has revolved around hating trans people. His work nowadays could bore a glass eye to sleep. He's got nothing left to say that anybody except the most hateful and ignorant of all transphobic bigots want to hear. I'd imagine it's been a long time since he's seen Richard Ayoade or Ardal O'Hanlon or his wife and kids. You see, he isn't just somebody who has made transphobia a toxic little part of his life like Jake Hate Rowling or the orange orator of bullshit across the pond. No, for Graeme Linehan, it is his whole life. A man so obsessed with hatred that his wife left him, his children can't be bothered with him, his career is over and he's universally hated by millions of people. And yet he's still trying to blame it all on trans people. So really, hatred and a small following of nasty wankers is all he's got left to play on these days. No wonder he angers to the point of almost causing himself to have a stroke so easily. But he's also a gaslighting and deceitful wank muffin, so he's decided to play on the ignorance and stupidity of those he's indoctrinated into his cult of cockends and big up the story with some persuasive language and a bit of bullshit. He's a writer after all. You see, he's trying to make some sort of statement about freedom of speech and the heavy-handedness of the police by overemphasising that he was apprehended by 5 armed policemen. The thing is, it's standard practice. An airport can be a volatile and dangerous place, and there's a lot of people about. He'd have been met by the same amount of police officers, no matter what crime he'd committed or who he was. He's not special. The Metropolitan Police have also confirmed that many officers carry a firearm as standard when policing an airport, and that at no time were any weapons drawn, any threats made to use any weapons, or any weapons of any kind pointed at Graeme Linehan in any way possible. They were simply just part of the kit of the arresting officers. He knows full well that his supporters won't assess his story with any level of critical thinking, though. So, to say he was arrested by 5 armed police and harassed to the point of having to be hospitalised is a great yarn to spin for them, isn't it? I wonder if he started a GoFundMe for his court expenses yet. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I'm going to leave it there because I could get really angry and bang on about Graeme Linehan for ages. He really is a piece of distended, festering rectum pretending to be a human being these days, and he disgusts me to the core. Tell you who doesn't disgust me to the core, and who has never threatened to punch me in the face or told lies about me on the internet, though, and it's the 3 trans people that I know. In fact, all 3 of them are far better examples of humanity than Linhan or his deplorable consort of cock-end followers are, or ever will be. The bullshit is raging, of course, A police spokesman said that he thinks the laws around this kind of charge need to be reviewed, and I'm fine with that. He made quite a good case, but that has meant that the shit rags that we call newspapers are now trying to frame it as a whole freedom of speech argument, despite the police spokesman also saying that Graham Linehan's conduct was so toxic that this case is one that would have been pursued regardless of the outcome of any review. Only a couple of the news sources that I looked at were bothering to mention that, though, obviously. As the battle against bullshit rages ever on, we need to call out people like Linehan and illustrate just how dishonest and deceitful they are, regardless of how we feel about their views. It's fine to have a distasteful opinion. It's not fine to use disinformation and deceit to fool other people into thinking they should also have that opinion. I intend to keep calling out cases like this, and if you'd like to contribute to my efforts, you can find the links to PayPal, Patreon, and the Buy Me a Coffee page, not being transphobic twatbags, in the description box, and the join button for memberships is, as always, below. Now, that isn't all I have to say, but it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-da-la. Tell you who doesn't disgust me to the core, though, and has never threatened violence and talking bollocks here, aren't I?